All right, fight fans, welcome back to part 2 of this episode of The Neutral Corner, the Canelo Golovkin special episode. And now we're going to preview all the action coming up this week. So Wednesday, September 13th, over in Japan, we have another card, a couple Japanese title fights. Yukinori Oguni versus Ryusuke Iwasa. And Oguni is defending his IBF Super Bantamweight title. You know, it's interesting, I talked about Danny Roman in the review, and he just went over there to Japan to claim a title, and his team talked about Oguni. So should he be successful in this fight, they would reach out to that team and see if, if the money would be right, they'd be willing to travel out there to Japan to try to unify these titles. So we'll see what happens. Also on that card, Kosei Tanaka defends his WBO light flyweight 108-pound title against Thai fighter. Man, my notes are messed up here. Shayan Ram. Ranga Shayan Ram. My notes here, my handwriting's so bad I can barely read that name. All right, Friday the 15th, ESPN, Golden Boy Boxing on ESPN returns. Pretty fun little card here. Rashidi Ellis, a welterweight prospect. He's going to be featured in the 10-rounder. Very exciting knockout artist, lightweight prospect Ryan Garcia is going to be featured in an 8-rounder. But in the main event, Dominican southpaw Claudio Montero goes up against Puerto Rican Jesus M. Rojas. Montero is defending his WBA interim featherweight title. It's a title he won back in April. The WBA madness continues. I don't know how you defend an interim title. If you have an interim title, shouldn't your next fight be for the regular title? But, WBA, this is what they do. But that should be a pretty good matchup and a fun card. Golden Boy, and that's going to be in Las Vegas. Obviously, Golden Boy puts that on. For all these big Canelo fights in Vegas, they always have a Friday night card the night before. And I think what they'll do is if you go to the Canelo Golovkin weigh-in, you get a discount on tickets for their Friday night card there. It's kind of like just a preemptive pregame for the main event for the big show that comes up on Saturday. So it should be fun. Lots of fights going on though Saturday all over the world. So before we get to the big card here in the States, let's go over to Cebu City or Cebu City. I see, guys, let me know, my Filipino fans out there in the Philippines, is it Cebu City or Cebu City? I look at C-E-B-U and I want to say Cebu, but that's how we'd say it in Italian. So correct me, is it Cebu or Cebu City? But there's a fight card there where Milan Malindo making the first defense of his IBF 108-pound title that he won back in May. Then in London, Billy Joe Saunders. Remember him? Remember Billy Joe Saunders? That guy? He is finally defending his WBO middleweight title against Willie Monroe Jr. And I got to tell you guys, I've sold all my Billy Joe Saunders stock. I just don't give a damn about anything the guy says or does. I have become a full-fledged Willie Monroe Jr. fan here. I really think he has a good shot in this fight. The only problem is Billy Joe Saunders, not a very powerful puncher, but Willie Monroe Jr. couldn't crack a freaking egg with a straight right hand. He just has no power at all. And I don't know if he has enough to win 9 rounds in this fight, because I think that's what he'd have to do to get the decision here. Billy Joe Saunders, 5'11" southpaw. He went pro in 2009. He's 28 years old. Willie Monroe, similar, 5'10" southpaw. Went pro in 2008. He's 30 years old, a little older. For Billy Joe Saunders, he won his WBO middleweight title in 2015 against Andy Lee. This is only his second fight since. His last fight against Akarov, I think that was last year. Many people feel that he did not deserve to win that fight, and he got a gift. He barely beat Andy Lee. He barely beat Chris Eubank Jr. when they fought back in, I think, 2014. So he's barely won in his toughest fights, and he hasn't been very active. Over that same time, Willie Monroe Jr. is 2-0 since the beatdown he took to Gennady Golovkin. He had some moments against Golovkin when they fought in 2015, But Golovkin and his team swear that that was Gennady playing with the guy. And I tend to believe them because the minute Abel got in Gennady's ass and said, go out there and knock him out, he did. It's pretty much what happened. So either way, Willie Monroe is 2-0 since losing to Triple G. He's won his 2 fights since decisively. Now, his first fight back was a bit of a layup, but he fought Gabe Rosado. Gabe Rosado, not the toughest guy in the world to beat, granted, but he's a tough, legitimate, solid fighter. And Willie Monroe Jr. clearly beat him. It was a stinker of a fight, but he clearly beat the guy. So you got 2 southpaws here. Neither guy punches with a lot of power. They're both more boxers. Obviously, this is going to be a very, very dull fight to watch on TV. What's going to be interesting to see is if Willie can use some of his slick boxing, his speed, his superior athleticism. I do think he's the more athletic fighter of the 2. If he can use that to clearly win rounds, and that's what he's going to have to do to get the decision here. As I said before, he's going to have to win 8 or 9 rounds to squeak by with a 115-113 decision here. I'm going to go out on a limb and say Willie Monroe Jr. pulls it off. He pulls off the upset and wins this title. Or he gets robbed and doesn't get the decision but clearly wins the fight. And maybe, Saunders keeps his title here. But I think all things being considered, if there's good scoring, I like Willie to win about 7 rounds to 5 in this fight. Okay, staying in the UK, over in Liverpool, Callum Smith and Erik Skoglund kicking off the super middleweight tournament in the World Boxing Super Series. So we just saw Usyk and Huck kick off the cruiserweight tournament last week. Now we got the super middleweight tournament kicking off. The problem with this fight for me, well, it's actually not a problem. I think it's actually what makes it interesting. I should restate that. I mean, we haven't seen either of these guys against a good fighter. We just don't know. On paper, Callum Smith is supposed to win this fight. He's 6'3". Erik Skoglund is 6'1". Smith is 22-0 with 17 knockouts. Skoglund is 26-0 with 12 knockouts. For both these guys, it's their first fight of 2017. They haven't been very active this year at all. Smith they both had amateur careers, and Skoglund was decent, but Smith's was better. He fought the better opposition, fought in a much better jurisdiction in the UK. So on paper, he's the A side, he's a top seed. He picked Skoglund as his opponent. He's supposed to win this fight. But we simply don't know about these two. We know a little more about Smith, and that's why he's favored here, and I favor him by stoppage in this fight. Late stoppage, probably mid-rounds to late rounds. But maybe there's this diamond in the rough with this Swedish fighter in Skoglund, and we just don't know, and this is his coming out party. I don't think that's what's going to happen, but maybe we'll have some surprises in the early rounds. Still, once the dust settles from that, I like Smith big in this fight. But maybe we'll be surprised. Look, I keep going back to the Showtime tournament, the Super 6, when they did their super middleweight tournament. There were some unknowns going into that tournament. Andre Ward was still a prospect, really, when he went into that tournament. Maybe a baby contender. And that was where he proved himself. Carl Froch was kind of maybe seen as this guy who wasn't very athletic and maybe couldn't get it done at the big stage. He proved his worth in that tournament, right? The favorites were guys like Mikael Kessler, guys like that. So sometimes in these tournaments, there's this X factor, and we see a guy grow up in front of our eyes. My prediction in this tournament is that Callum Smith is that guy in the super middleweight tournament. I think he's going to be that guy that nobody really knows who he is right now, especially in America, although it's not on American television. I was just about to say, people are going to get to know who this guy is, but the problem is it's not on American television. But I do think he's going to grow up a little bit in front of our eyes and prove himself in this fight. I like him to beat Skoglund by stoppage. Okay, let's go to Las Vegas, T-Mobile Arena this Saturday. I am getting to Vegas Thursday. For those of you who are making the trip, tweet me, message me here, email me, whatever, Facebook me, and let's meet up and have a beer. I'll be there Thursday. The weigh-in Friday, as I mentioned early, is early on Friday. I mentioned earlier in this episode that it's early at noon. Open to the public and everything as far as I understand it. I don't believe they're charging, but they have charged before. But I think it's open. There's going to be a huge, huge line. There is a massive line for the Canelo Chavez weigh-in. And when I say massive, you guys, if you follow my channel, go back and look, because I did a little video just walking around with my phone, literally just walking around like this, showing the line. People waited hours outside the MGM Grand in the hot sun, because this is back in May, where it's hot in Vegas. And it's still going to be hot there now. People are going to wait in the sun for this. So if you want to go to the weigh-in, you're going to be at a very, very long line. If you want to go there early and wait, good for you. Bring some beers, bring a cooler, do what you got to do, man. My suggestion would be to get there just before doors open. The line will fly through. You won't have the greatest seat maybe, but MGM's pretty big, man. You can't, you're not going to have a bad seat. Wait until the line flies through, because when they open the doors, everyone will literally fly through. They have metal detectors, but they'll have like 5 or 6 of them set up. So wait until if the doors open at 11:30, go there at 11:45. That's the way to do it. Do not go there at 8 in the morning. It's going to be insane. Okay, on to the card. Main event. I'm not going to talk a whole lot about it here because I already did a thorough breakdown and prediction video. You guys go back and watch that. Please share it. Get it out there. I want to get that to 100,000 views. That's my goal with that video, so I need your help. Also, we went around asking fans and media and boxing insiders, all kinds of people at the Superfly card who they thought was going to win. And I posted that video, so be sure to check that out. That was actually an idea Tiffany had, and she did a great job. It's a really fun little video. So this undercard, not very good. Not the strongest undercard. In fact, it's pretty shitty, actually. None of the fights are bad, but they're just not great. I'm going to go over them briefly, and then I'll hit on some things with the main event, and then we'll wrap it up. But Ryan Blue Chip Martin, 19-0 with 11 knockouts, 5'11", going up against a 5'7" Mexican fighter, Francisco Rojo, who is 20-2 with 13 knockouts. This is a lightweight fight, 10-rounder. Rojo has 2 losses, but he's never been stopped. Martin's going to be the first guy to stop him. So that's what's happening there. That's going to open the broadcast. Then I believe they're going to Randy Caballero versus Diego De La Hoya. Now, I think this will be a pretty good fight. I think this is the best fight of the undercard. It's worth checking out. Randy Caballero is 24-0-14, 26 years old, 5'6", 68-inch reach, went pro in 2010, Southern California native. So he's going to bring some fans out there with him to Las Vegas. Now he's going up against Oscar De La Hoya's cousin and a Mexican from Mexico, Diego De La Hoya, who is 23 years old, a little younger, same height, same reach, went pro in 2013. So he's lesser experienced than Caballero as a pro. And he's 19-0 with 9 knockouts. This is at super bantamweight. It's a 10-rounder. On paper, you want to favor Caballero because Caballero has been a pro 3 years longer, has a few more pro fights. You can argue he's faced the better opposition. He briefly held a bantamweight title, the IBF bantamweight title, back in 2014. The problem is, no fights in 2015, only 1 fight in 2016. He's been very inactive. In that same time span, from 2015 to now, De La Hoya is 11-0. Now, most of those opponents have been prospect building, career building prospects, like the LA Fight Club cards at Belasco Theater and all that stuff. But he did fight on the Canelo Con undercard last May. So that gave him big fight, even though his fight wasn't big, but a big card, big atmosphere experience. He's fought at T-Mobile Arena before. His last fight was in Argentina in July I talked about that on the show. He fought for a minor title. So he's fought at the big stage in T-Mobile before on a Canelo undercard. Caballero was supposed to, but remember he had a weight issue. So that never happened for him. Diego De La Hoya has traveled on the road. He went to Argentina and won a fight. So I actually like Diego De La Hoya big in this fight. What's going to be interesting for me is how the crowd reacts to it. Because again, Randy Caballero is an American fighter from the Southern California area. No doubt he's going to have fans travel up there. He's also been fighting on TV and stuff longer, has a little more of a built-up name with fight fans as far as fighting on TV and stuff. But Diego De La Hoya has a bigger name because he's Oscar's cousin, and he's actually from Mexico. And it's going to be a mostly Mexican crowd there at T-Mobile this Saturday. So, which way is the crowd going to go? That's what I'm curious about. How might that sway the judges? Curious about that. In the end, though, De La Hoya's got the right last name. He's been way more active, and he's going to win this fight. And I think he's going to win it decisively. But I do think it's going to be a very, very fun fight because of the guys' styles, their size, their age, and there's a little bit of a rivalry here. They're going to bring it. Trust me, it's going to be a good one. Now, other fight is Joseph Diaz Jr., who, I featured a lot on my channel. I did an article about him, Boxing Monthly magazine, late last year. He's going up against Jorge Lara, a Mexican fighter. Joseph Diaz is 24-0 with 13 knockouts. Lara is 29-0-2 with 21 knockouts. This is a 12-rounder because it's a WBC featherweight title eliminator. So when I interviewed Jojo Diaz late last year, I think it was the November issue of 2016 for Boxing Monthly Mag, him and his team said that their goal was to fight for a title in 2017. I don't think that's going to happen, right? But if he wins this fight, which I do think he will, I think he's going to win it by decision. He's going to be lined up for a title shot in early 2018. And good for him. He's a good-looking prospect. He's been improving with each and every fight. He's been sitting down more in his punches, fighting in a more pro style with each and every fight. I would love to see him make a statement and get Lara out of there and stop him. Even if it's an accumulation type stoppage where he catches him on the ropes and the ref jumps in, something like that. I'd love to see a statement type of performance like that on this kind of stage. It's up to him to do that. Based on what I've seen from Diaz and everything else, I think this is probably going to go all 12 and he wins a decision. So, all right, a little bit about the main event. And I talked before about the judges. Adelaide Bird, Dave Moretti, Don Trella, referee Kenny Bayless. I've also talked about the fact that the weigh-in is early. The weigh-in is at noon Friday. That clearly favors Canelo. There is no 7-day weigh-in protocol or 30-day weigh-in protocol for Canelo because he's refusing to fight for the WBC. Gennady Golovkin did have to make a 30-day weigh-in and a 7-day weigh-in. And he really has no problems with that. It's something that, he's always pretty much on weight, and he's not a big middleweight himself, but it's an added thing that he's had to worry about and prepare for that Canelo hasn't. From noon till probably 9 o'clock West Coast time, Saturday, right? Noon Friday to 9 o'clock Saturday. I mean, man, that's well over 24 hours for Canelo to swell up. So he's clearly going to be the much, much bigger man in the ring against Golovkin. So there's a lot favoring Canelo here. But that's how this fight got made, guys. It only got made because Canelo and his team wanted to wait Golovkin out, let him get a little bit older, let him take a little more punishment, but also build this fight up. And I really do believe that that was part of it as well. But another part that people aren't talking about is that Canelo and his team have been working on stuff. They've been facing different styles. Now, it's been hand-selected opponents, right? It's been guys like Amir Khan, Chavez, even Liam Smith. But these guys all have different styles that bring different things to the table, and Canelo has been able to work on different things in camp and try different things in those fights and work on them. So the time is right for this fight to happen if you want the most competitive possible matchup. When you factor all the political stuff, all the advantages for Canelo, all the things he's been working on, all the improvements he's made, some of the punishment Golovkin's taken, more and more fights for him. He's the older guy. All those factors make this fight the maximum capacity of competitiveness that it can be. So for me, it piques my interest in the fight. Some of you out there are saying this fight should have happened 2 years ago and stuff, and I understand that point of view, but I disagree because of all the reasons I stated. If this fight happened 2 years ago, it probably would have just been Golovkin whitewashing Canelo. Look at when Canelo fought Floyd Mayweather. That fight shouldn't have happened. Canelo and Mayweather should have fought 2015, 2014, somewhere in there. Probably 2015. That's when that fight would have been right. Okay? So sometimes, it's not if, but it's when. And I think that this thing is happening at the right time. Now, judges, I talked about this in the first segment of this episode. They might be a factor, they might not. I don't think we're going to see a situation like we did with Ward Kovalev. Don't see that happening. I think that this is a completely different situation. I think Golovkin and K2 are coming in with a lot more influence, I guess. They don't have any power in this situation, but a lot more influence and a lot higher standing than Kovalev had. Kovalev was powerless in that situation, even though he had all the titles. He was clearly powerless. And you saw what happened in the rematch, promotionally and everything else. That's not the situation here. Further, these two camps, these two companies, K2 Promotions, Golden Boy Promotions, they get along. They're copacetic. The network relationship is good between all the parties. There's not a confrontational network relationship. The corners, John David Jackson and Sergey Kovalev, that's a thing I haven't really talked about in the news and notes, but that's all falling apart now. Sergey Kovalev is going to come back and fight Vyacheslav Shabransky. Totally forgot to mention that in the news and notes segment. John David Jackson won't be a part of that corner. And he's coming on the record now with all kinds of information about Sergey. The wheels have completely fallen off that, right? That's not happening here. So Sanchez and Golovkin work so well. The Reynosos and Canelo, they've worked together for years. And it's like families. Just a completely different situation here, guys. So let's not worry about the judges or even the ref unless we have to. Canelo's not a stinker. He's not a holder. He doesn't foul. He's not going to pull the stuff Floyd would pull with Kenny Bayless. So I don't see this being that much of a factor. One other thing, VADA testing. I checked in with the VADA people this morning, talked to them directly, and they both confirmed both fighters have been receiving the full VADA testing panel for months now. Months, okay? So all the stuff you're hearing, all the rumors and stuff going on about this guy's juicing, that guy's juicing, this guy looks huge, and blah, blah. Okay, you guys can have your suspicions, but both men volunteered and are paying for the best drug testing in all of sports. They volunteered for this. This was not mandated through the WBC. A lot of you confuse the clean boxing program and what that is with the full VADA panel. It is much more effective to do the full VADA panel testing for 3 months in a camp than random 365 testing for the clean boxing program. Now, some would say, and there's a valid argument here, that doing the year-round testing with clean boxing program is a deterrent from using in between camps. And you're right, but the clean boxing program isn't totally random. It's mandated by the WBC's budget. They put up a certain amount of money and they give it to VADA, and then VADA tests people, but it's not enough money to test even 10% of the fighters that are ranked. It's very random, and many fighters go the entire year without being tested because of the limited budget the WBC provides. Now, that's why in this situation, yeah, would I like both fighters to be in the clean boxing program? Gennady Golovkin is, because he fights for the WBC title and he wants to keep the title. So he's in that program, and he's been doing full vada for all of his fights going back to 2015, and he's been in the clean boxing program the entire time that's existed. Canelo's not in the clean boxing program because he doesn't recognize the WBC. Some people say that's a deterrent to avoid drug testing. I completely disagree because Canelo, again, volunteered for VADA testing. He's never had an issue with the drug test in the past. His issues with the WBC have nothing to do with the clean boxing program. They have everything to do with Mauricio Sulaiman and their belt whoring. One last little quick note about the WBC. They know that Canelo wants nothing to do with them, yet they interjected themselves in the Canelo-Chavez fight with that Hoichel belt. They're doing that again with this fight. It has nothing to do with this event. The WBC title is on the line for Golovkin only. He's the only one paying sanctioning fees or honoring any of the WBC's rules. Canelo clearly wants nothing to do with the WBC, yet they keep forcing themselves in these events. It's kind of disgusting. It's actually very disgusting. And when you look at the money belt that they propped up for the Mayweather-McGregor thing, they didn't take sanctioning fees for that fight because it wasn't a sanctioned fight. Yet they put up a money belt just so they could be a part of the event. And by the way, they charge the fighters for the belts, guys. They're not gifts. Now maybe the Hoichel belt, however the hell you say it, maybe that will be a gift. I don't know. But the fighters are either paying sanctioning fees for these belts or they're paying for the cost of the belt, as in the case with the money belt. They're not free. But the WBC spending all that time and money producing these belts and using media outlets that they fund. There are some small media outlets. Some of them, most of them are based here in Southern California, but a lot of them are based in Mexico as well, that they actually fund. They give stipends to these media outlets, which is why I can't support some of these media outlets, even though some of the people that I know who work with them are wonderful people and are friends of mine. I just can't support the media outlet. The WBC funds some of these people. They spend money on that. They spend money on belts, but they could be taking that money and increasing the budget of the clean boxing program. That's my biggest issue with the WBC. I love the clean boxing program, but they should quadruple the budget of it. And if they lost just a few of these belts, maybe they could do that. So there you go. Anyway, guys, again, check out my prediction, my breakdown video. Please get that out there to your friends. Post it everywhere. Tweet it. Feel free to embed it in any of your blogs or articles or anything like that. And get at me in Vegas, man. It's going to be a lot of fun. Guys, this is the event we've been waiting for. I'll see you at the fights.